Yeah, my experience began in 2003, following the murder of my son. And that happened 2 weeks after the breakup of a relationship. The brother and two friends of the girl he broke up with broke into his house and attacked him with weapons they picked up from his garden shed. That began, as you can imagine, I don't need to I'm sure, tell anybody what a nightmare experience that was, and what an absolute devastation it was for my family. I suppose we thought that was the worst thing that had ever happened to us, and so it was. But we didn't realize that we were now embarking on a journey into the criminal justice system that would be equally as devastating in it, for many different reasons. I suppose I can say we were lucky, and maybe luckier than some, in that a lot of our contact with the agencies of the criminal justice system were positive, quite positive. We had very good contact from the Gardaí in our country, the police. They were very supportive, very, very helpful. I suppose the first difficulty we encountered would have been the time frame. It was 2 years before the case came to trial, and the three young men were charged with murder. For various reasons, there were various complications during the trial period, and we ended up having 3 separate trials. I won't go into the details now, but I'm happy to answer questions if anybody wants to delve into it. There were mostly legal issues that caused collapse of the first trial. The second trial, one young man was acquitted because he didn't strike a blow, although he was part of the common design. The brother of the girl that my son had broken up with was found guilty of manslaughter, and that was okay. And the jury came back to ask a question of the judge, and for some inexplicable reason, he dismissed them. So that led to the third trial. And that was bad enough, but that all took another 18 months to happen. So there were huge delays in between. And at that trial, the final guy, who I believe was the main instigator of the attack, was found guilty of manslaughter, which felt like a huge injustice to us. It seemed really a wrong verdict, but we were told we have to accept the verdict of a jury. The DPP did offer to appeal it, but at that stage, to paraphrase the New Zealand Prime Minister, we had nothing left in the tank to go again. It didn't matter to me almost at that stage, because by then I had dismissed them in my head. Those people don't exist for me anymore. So that was basically the bones of it. But I think the real injustice during those trials was one defense team seemed to have a game plan that included getting me out of that courtroom for whatever reason. At each of the trials, it first happened when the weapon was produced suddenly out of a bag, and I reacted and left the courtroom because I knew I was going to cry. And when I came back in, this defense team was on their feet asking the judge to collapse the trial because I was trying to influence the jury. Now, at that point, I was new to the criminal justice system. I didn't even know you could do that. So he didn't collapse the trial for that reason. But then at each of the subsequent trials, they closely monitored my reactions by standing at the edge of the pew where I was sitting. And any time a tear appeared on my face, they were looking to collapse the trial. And to be fair to the judge, 3 different judges, they didn't accede to their demand at any time, and told them more or less to get real. What did they expect the mother of a victim to do from time to time? So that had a huge impact on me. And I'm not a nervous Nelly, but that made me really, really nervous, and I was terrified to move a muscle in case I could collapse the trial. It meant there were periods when I couldn't be in the courtroom because I knew there might be sensitive information about the injuries my son had, and I couldn't risk causing the trial to collapse. You talk about safe justice. I felt that was very unsafe. But after the trials were finished, I did write to the Law Society to make a complaint because I felt it was completely unnecessary and nobody should have to, go through that sort of thing. And the reply I received from them was that they couldn't accept the complaint because I had not employed the solicitor. The state had employed him. So no voice whatsoever, simply because I hadn't employed him. But it had a very profound impact on us. You mentioned AdVIC. Shortly after, even before the trials happened, shortly after my son was killed, I felt a strong need to meet another family who had been through the same thing. I contacted what was then Victim Support in Ireland, and I did meet some other families. And I suppose we had a very similar outlook on, they'd all been through the same thing and were at different stages of their journey. But we strongly felt that the system was very unbalanced and was weighted heavily in favour of the accused. And we felt there were aspects of it that didn't need to be like that it could be recalibrated. And so we set up AdVIC, and we began to work with the agencies in the criminal justice system to advocate for change. But of course, change comes very slowly. And while, we did manage to, get through to people, and we found them very positive in their response to us. But what was lacking was empathy, I think. In theory, the information existed, but nobody seemed to realize that a traumatized victim, doesn't even know how to go about finding the information. In fact, you don't even know what you need to know at a certain point. So the first thing we did was gather all of the information together in a website and a booklet, and that was the first thing we did. You mentioned earlier, Lev, about leaflets. During the time immediately after my son was killed, somebody called to my house with a big bag of leaflets. And I was really taken aback by it and very suspicious about it at that stage, because all of your whole sense of security is gone at that point. And it was, in fact, it was a very well-intentioned volunteer who was working, with victim support. But it was a cold call, and I just felt this is not the way to do it. So in AdVIC, we never contact people. We don't reach out. We work with the guards, the Gardaí, and we give them the information. And when the family is ready, they come to us, and we help them as much as we can. We help them access support at court, I think, which is a very important service. Certainly it existed in Ireland when I was going through the courts. And without those volunteers who were able to explain to me what was happening, I didn't even know what a courtroom looked like, So they from the very basic, they take you through the courtroom, they show you everything, they explain what's going on. When legal arguments were happening, they were able to explain, don't panic, this happens. They even were able to provide a room which was, at that time, the judge's dressing room, where we could have a cup of tea or a cup of coffee or whatever. So hugely important. And I know that in Ireland, certainly, the support at court, people have become very sophisticated now, and they have dedicated victim suites, etc. In AdVIC, I think one of the main queries we get from people is around the area of criminal injuries compensation. oh God, it's where do you even start with it? I think it's a problem in every country, but for us, it's up to now it was on a non-statutory footing, and it is so complex and so complicated. You have to download the application form online, and it's a 24-page application form. It is the clunkiest, densest legal document or, application form. It's really terrible. And I think you have to do that whether your bike has been stolen or somebody has been murdered or you've been raped. It's the same application. And we believe that, homicide and rape should be dealt with separately. It's just not enough to, fill in a form with your name and your numbers, etc., etc. I think you need human contact to be able to convey your distress and your situation, and for them to understand the trauma you're going through. So I think serious training is needed around that whole area. Now we have a really progressive justice minister in Ireland at the moment. She's on maternity leave currently, but she really has made a lot of changes, and she's suggested a lot of changes. Not all of them have been implemented, but she's doing really, really well. And she has recommended a review of the Criminal Injuries Compensation Tribunal. I thought change had happened there. I could not establish it from their website. So I thought, I'll ring them up and I'll speak to them, because that's the best way to find out. And the phone number, which is on their website, is out of service. So access is very difficult. I don't know how you do it at the moment. I'll have to follow that one up when I go back. So I think training, they did reach out to some organisations for input into their training programme. And we did provide very complex training suggestions to them, but they didn't come back to us. And I don't know where that's at the moment. So I'm not very hopeful that things will change very quickly there. The guards are very open to change, and they're very open to listening to the voice of the victim. And I know sometimes it's not easy to maybe for an organisation to deal with individual victims, but they could liaise with the NGOs who work with victims on the ground, because those are the people who can relay real situations, real life situations. I think education is another important area, and certainly following homicide, we are working on developing a schools program where we hope to go into schools and talk to young men in particular about the effects of violent action and homicide and death and all of that, and how it affects family life, because they're young, they don't understand, and they're maybe watching social media, which gives them a very warped sense of how women can be treated, and even other men can be treated. And I think that has to be countered with positive education. We're also developing a digital program, a digital support program, which we're going to launch next week. It's called Beat the Blues. It's an online CBT program for 16-year-olds upwards. And we're just working on another one, which is for younger children from, I think, the age of 12 to 16. And that one will be, it's like an online game, because children of that age are such digital natives, where they really may not be able to sit down in front of a counsellor. And we're finding it difficult enough to find specialist child counsellors. I suppose am I nearly there?
Yes.
Okay, I finished now.
All people who tell me that I have to stop you, but it's so interesting to listen to you.
Can I have 1 minute?
Yes,
1 minute.
1 minute. That's
I think one very important change that we definitely have been banging the drum about for a lot of years is that we need in Ireland either a victims ombudsman or a victims commissioner. We need this one-stop shop where victims can go to get information, where they will be listened to, and where they can bring a complaint if their rights are breached. It hasn't got any traction so far, but we will keep banging that drum, and hopefully it will happen one day. So thank you.